whatever. Like.
Thank you. Next speaker, Senator Aodhán Ríordáin.
Thanks very much, Minister. You're welcome to the House. And just to say, while many of us in this House may be very critical of government policy in many different areas, I have to say, from my own point of view, that your government should be commended for how proactive you are in dealing with this issue post the referendum, and indeed since. And I think your presentation here today is very welcome. I find this entire issue around Brexit to be profoundly depressing. I think it's depressing for what it says about modern politics, not just in Europe but across the world. It's depressing as to how a minority view in one particular party can be brought to the mainstream, drives a political agenda, splits the country, and the emotions and the xenophobia that has arisen in Britain since the referendum and because of the referendum is quite startling. And I am interested to hear your views of what the future of the EU is, because the EU has been a force for good. Now, I'm stunned to hear voices in this House who have members of parties who have resisted every referendum over decades that try to integrate ourselves more into the wider family of the EU, now criticising government as to what government is or not doing in terms of the Brexit issue. But the EU has been a force for good since it was founded in post-Second World War Europe. It has basically allowed for peaceful diplomacy to be the order of the day on the continent of Europe, and we can only deal with the great international issues of climate justice or the refugee crisis as a collective within the EU. And then when one major member state decides to leave, what does that mean for the rest of this project? What does it mean for the greater project? So obviously we have to have a conversation in Ireland about the relationship between ourselves and the UK, critically around the border with Northern Ireland, and particularly around the communities in that border region who gave a presentation to one of the Oireachtas committees on regional affairs minister recently, and they are quite rightly very concerned about the impact that Brexit will have over the coming years. But to ask you, I suppose, from a wider perspective about the future of the EU and what it means for diplomacy, what it means for the discussions, and what it means for the state of international politics, because we see what's happening in France, we see what's happening in Austria, we see what's happening in Hungary, we see what's happening in Germany, that the very political mindset that led to great men and women of the 40s and 50s to decide that they had to put the disasters of the past behind them and build a new future, that very politics seems to be under more threat than ever before. And it's particularly worrying considering what's also happening in the United States of America. So I just want to say that I commend the work that the government did before the referendum and particularly now. But I have to say I found it quite, in terms of the Northern Ireland question, I found it astonishing that the Northern Ireland Secretary of State would take a position on this referendum. Either way, and particularly to take a position of exiting the European Union. I was astonished that somebody in her position, so critical to the future of peace and prosperity in this island, representing the British government in the 6 counties, would take a position. And I feel quite strongly that Ms Villiers was absolutely wrong to take a position and to advocate for any position to be taken, but definitely she was wrong to advocate for what was clearly not in the interests of the people of Northern Ireland. So I wish you well in your endeavours, Minister. We absolutely here in the Labour Party, as a pro-European party, are here to assist you in any way we can. But I worry about the future of the European project. I worry about other member states and political parties within member states looking at what's happened in Brexit as a political opportunity, and I worry for our ability as a collective to deal with the great issues of our day, because the great issue of our day can only be dealt with, as I say, as a wider international community.
Thank you, Senator.